When Michael Jordan walked into Romano's restaurant wearing an old Bulls hat, the manager said, "Remove that hat or leave." Michael refused. This wasn't just any hat. It belonged to someone who had died 3 weeks ago, someone so special that Michael would rather be kicked out than take it off. The argument got heated. Phones started recording. A mother with a sick boy watched from across the room and decided to help a stranger. What happened next changed everyone's life forever because that old hat held an incredible secret, a connection nobody saw coming, a miracle that went back 8 years. But why couldn't Michael Jordan take off a simple baseball cap? And how could one hat connect strangers in the most shocking way imaginable? The soft jazz music floated through Romano's Italian restaurant like a gentle whisper. Crystal glasses sparkled under warm yellow lights. White tablecloths were perfectly pressed. Everything looked fancy and expensive. It was Tuesday evening, and the restaurant was mostly empty. Only a few tables had people eating their pasta and talking quietly. The smell of garlic bread filled the air. Michael Jordan pushed open the heavy glass door and stepped inside. He wore simple blue jeans, a plain white t-shirt, and old sneakers. On his head sat a worn Chicago Bulls baseball cap, faded from years of wear. He wanted to be alone tonight. No crowds, no cameras, no people asking for pictures. Just a quiet dinner by himself. "Good evening, sir," said the hostess with a bright smile. "Table for one." "Yes, please," Michael said softly. "Somewhere quiet, if you have it." She led him to a corner booth in the back of the restaurant. Perfect. He could sit with his back to the wall and his cap pulled low over his eyes. Maybe no one would notice him. Michael slid into the red leather seat and picked up the menu. The prices were high, but he didn't care. He just wanted peace. From across the dining room, Derek Sullivan watched the new customer sit down. Derek was 26 years old and had been the manager at Romano's for only 3 weeks. He took his job very seriously. Derek had big dreams. He wanted to own his own restaurant someday. He wanted to prove to his boss that he could handle anything. He followed every rule perfectly. His sharp eyes noticed the baseball cap right away. Romano's had a strict dress code. No hats, no shorts, no sneakers. The sign by the front door made it very clear. Derek straightened his black tie and walked across the restaurant. His shoes clicked on the marble floor. He had to enforce the rules. That's what good managers did. "Excuse me, sir," Derek said when he reached the corner booth. Michael looked up from his menu. His dark eyes met Derek's blue ones. "We have a dress code policy here," Derek continued. "Hats aren't allowed in the dining room." Michael blinked in surprise. Most people knew who he was the moment they saw him. This young man seemed to only care about his hat. "I understand you have rules," Michael said calmly, "but I'd really prefer to keep it on if that's okay." Derek shook his head. His jaw was tight. "I'm sorry, but rules are rules. Everyone has to follow them. No exceptions." A couple at a nearby table turned to look. They whispered to each other and pointed. One pulled out her phone. Michael felt his chest tighten. The hat wasn't just any hat. It meant everything to him. It held memories that were too precious to explain to a stranger. "This hat," Michael started, then stopped. How could he explain? "It means something very special to me." "I'm sure it does," Derek said, but his voice had no kindness in it. "But you'll need to remove it, or I'll have to ask you to leave." More people were looking now. Michael heard someone whisper his name. A man at the bar held up his phone like he was recording. The restaurant felt hot suddenly. Michael's hands began to shake slightly. He thought about leaving. He could just walk out and find somewhere else to eat. But something inside him refused to give up. This hat had given him strength through his hardest days. He couldn't just take it off because someone told him to. "Please," Michael said quietly. "Can't you make one exception?" Derek crossed his arms. "Sir, I've been very patient, but I have a job to do. Either the hat comes off, or you need to leave." The whole restaurant was watching now. Conversations had stopped. Forks hung in the air, halfway to mouths. Everyone waited to see what would happen next. Michael's hand moved slowly toward the brim of his cap. His fingers touched the soft, worn fabric. The hat felt warm under his palm. For 3 weeks, he had worn this hat every single day. It was his promise, his way of keeping someone close to his heart. But now, sitting in this fancy restaurant with all these people staring, he wasn't sure what to do. Derek tapped his foot impatiently. "Sir, I need you to make a decision right now." Michael's fingers gripped the brim tighter. The hat seemed to pulse with memories. Good memories. Sad memories. Important memories. He closed his eyes for just a moment and made his choice. Michael's fingers trembled as they touched the worn fabric. The restaurant noise faded away. Derek's impatient voice became a distant sound. All Michael could think about was the day he got this hat. It was 3 weeks ago. The Bulls' practice gym was empty except for 2 people. Michael had stayed late to shoot free throws, trying to clear his mind. That's when he saw Pops sitting alone on the bleachers. Clarence Washington was 72 years old. Everyone at the Bulls called him Pops. He had been the janitor at their practice gym for 15 years. Every morning at 6, Pops unlocked the doors. Every night at 10, he turned off the lights. But Pops was more than just a janitor. He was the heart of the building. Young players who missed their families would find Pops in his small office. He always had time to listen. He never gave fancy advice. He just cared. "You okay, son?" Pops would ask when someone looked sad. "Just keep working hard," he'd say when players felt frustrated. "Your family would be proud," he'd tell the ones who came from tough neighborhoods. Pops wore the same faded Bulls cap every single day. It was old and worn. The blue color had turned almost gray. The Red Bull logo was cracked and peeling. "This old hat has seen more basketball than most people," Pops used to joke. "It's been with me through every practice, every celebration, every heartbreak in this building." 3 weeks ago, Pops looked different. His dark skin was pale. His strong hands shook. His cheerful smile seemed forced. "Pops, you feeling all right?" Michael had asked, sitting down beside him on the bleachers. "Got some news from the doctor today?" Pops said quietly. "Cancer. It's spread pretty far." Michael felt like someone had punched him in the stomach. Pops was like a father to many of the players. He was the one person who treated everyone the same, whether they were superstars or bench players. "How long do the doctors think?" Michael couldn't finish the question. "Maybe a month," Pops said. "Maybe less." They sat in silence for a while. The empty gym felt huge and lonely. Michael had played in front of millions of people, but sitting next to Pops felt more important than any game. Slowly, Pops reached up and took off his old Bulls cap. His gray hair was thin underneath. He held the hat carefully, like it was made of gold. "I want you to have this," Pops said. "Pops, I can't take your hat." "Yes, you can. And you will." Pops' voice was weak but firm. "This hat has been my companion for 15 years. It's seen every championship celebration. It's been with me during every tough loss. It's absorbed more tears of joy and sadness than you can imagine." Michael stared at the worn cap in Pop's hands. But most importantly, Pops continued, "This hat has taught me that it's not about what you wear on your head. It's about what you carry in your heart. I want you to carry that lesson with you." "Why me?" Michael asked. Pop smiled, and for a moment, he looked like his old self again. "Because you understand what really matters. You see people for who they are, not what they can do for you. This hat needs to be with someone who will honor what it represents." Michael took the hat with shaking hands. It felt heavier than it looked. "Promise me something," Pops said. "When life gets hard, when people try to make you forget who you are, you wear this hat. Let it remind you of what's important." "I promise," Michael whispered. Pops died 2 weeks later. The funeral was small and quiet. Michael wore the hat. Now, sitting in Romano's restaurant with Derek staring at him, Michael understood why he couldn't take it off. This wasn't just a hat. It was his promise to a man who had shown him the meaning of quiet strength and humble service. "Sir," Derek's voice cut through the memory. "I'm waiting for an answer." Michael opened his eyes. The restaurant came back into focus. People were still staring. Phones were still recording. He looked up at Derek's impatient face. This young man had no idea what he was asking. He couldn't possibly understand what this simple, worn hat represented. "I made a promise," Michael said softly. "A promise?" Derek looked confused. "To someone very important to me. Someone who's no longer here." Derek's expression didn't change. "Sir, I don't care what promise you made. This is a business, and we have rules." Michael felt anger rising in his chest, but then he heard Pop's voice in his memory. "When people try to make you forget who you are, you wear this hat." He pulled the cap down a little lower on his forehead. "Then I guess we have a problem," Michael said quietly. 3 tables away, Elena Rodriguez watched the scene with growing worry. She had been trying to ignore the conversation, but the tension was getting worse. Elena sat across from her 8-year-old son, Marcus. Tonight was supposed to be perfect. It was Marcus's birthday, and they were celebrating at the nicest restaurant Elena could afford. She had worked extra shifts at both of her jobs for 2 months to save money for this dinner. She cleaned offices at night and worked at a grocery store during the day. Every dollar was important in their small family. Marcus needed this special night. For the past 2 years, his life had been filled with hospitals, doctors, and treatments. He was fighting leukemia, a type of cancer that made him very sick. Most 8-year-olds worried about homework and video games. Marcus worried about blood tests and chemotherapy. His thin body was weak from the medicine that was supposed to make him better, but tonight, Marcus looked happy. His dark eyes sparkled as he ate his spaghetti. He wore his favorite shirt, a Red Bulls jersey with the number 23 on it. His head was covered with a Chicago Bulls cap because the treatments had made his hair fall out. "Mom, this is the best birthday ever," Marcus said with a big smile. Elena's heart filled with love and sadness at the same time. Her son was so brave. He never complained about the pain or the scary treatments. He just kept fighting. "I'm glad. You're happy, baby," she said, reaching across to squeeze his small hand. That's when Marcus looked toward the corner booth and gasped. Mom, look," he whispered excitedly, pointing across the restaurant. Elena followed his gaze and saw the man in the Bulls cap arguing with the young manager. The man looked familiar, but she couldn't place him. "What is it, Marcus?" "That's Michael Jordan." Marcus could barely contain his excitement. "That's really him. Michael Jordan is here." Elena looked more carefully. Now she recognized the famous basketball player. Marcus had posters of Michael Jordan covering every wall of his bedroom. During his worst days in the hospital, Marcus would watch old Bulls games on his tablet. "He's my hero, Mom," Marcus whispered. "He never gave up, no matter what." Elena understood why her son loved Michael Jordan so much. Both of them were fighters who refused to quit when things got tough. But as she watched the confrontation continue, Elena felt angry. The young manager was being rude and loud. Other people in the restaurant were pulling out their phones to record the argument. This wasn't right. Michael Jordan was just trying to eat dinner peacefully. He wasn't bothering anyone. Why couldn't the manager just leave him alone? "Mom, why is that man being mean to Michael Jordan?" Marcus asked, his voice full of confusion. Elena didn't know what to say. She had spent years teaching Marcus to stand up for what was right. She had fought insurance companies who didn't want to pay for his treatments. She had argued with doctors who didn't take his symptoms seriously. She had demanded better care from nurses who were too busy to listen. Elena knew what it felt like to be treated unfairly. She knew what it meant to fight for dignity and respect. But she also knew that getting involved might cause a scene. This was Marcus's special birthday dinner. She didn't want to ruin it by starting more drama. The argument was getting louder. The manager looked angry and impatient. Michael Jordan remained calm, but Elena could see the sadness in his eyes. "Sir, you need to remove that hat or leave immediately," the manager said in a voice loud enough for the whole restaurant to hear. Several people were now openly recording with their phones. Elena saw them posting on social media, probably hoping their videos would go viral. Marcus watched with wide eyes as his hero faced embarrassment and disrespect. Elena saw her son's happy expression change to worry and confusion. "Mom, someone should help him," Marcus said quietly. Elena looked at her brave little boy. Here was a child who had faced needles, surgeries, and treatments that would scare most adults. He had never asked why bad things happened to good people. He just kept believing that things would get better. Now Marcus was watching his hero get bullied, and he wanted someone to help. How could Elena teach her son to stand up for others if she wasn't willing to do it herself? Elena thought about all the times strangers had been kind to her and Marcus. Nurses who worked extra hours to comfort him. Doctors who explained things patiently. Teachers who sent homework to the hospital so Marcus wouldn't fall behind. Sometimes helping others meant taking risks. Sometimes doing the right thing was uncomfortable. Elena looked at the man in the Bulls cap again. She didn't know why the hat was so important to him, but she could see that it was. She could see the pain in his eyes when the manager demanded he remove it. "You're right, baby," Elena said to Marcus. "Someone should help him." She took a deep breath, pushed back her chair, and stood up. "Mom, what are you doing?" Marcus asked. "What you taught me to do," Elena said with a small smile. "Stand up for what's right." Elena walked across the restaurant, her heart pounding. She didn't know what she was going to say, but she knew she Had to try to. Elena's hands shook as she approached the corner booth. Every step felt like walking through deep water. She could turn around right now and pretend she never saw anything. She could protect Marcus's birthday dinner and avoid getting involved. But her feet kept moving forward. Derek was standing over Michael's table, his arms crossed and his face red with anger. "Sir, this is your final warning. Remove the hat or I'm calling security." "Excuse me," Elena said, her voice quieter than she intended. Both men turned to look at her. Derek's eyebrows pulled together in annoyance. Michael's tired eyes met hers with surprise. "Excuse me," Elena said again, louder this time. "I couldn't help noticing this situation. Is there really no exception you can make?" Derek's face grew, even redder. He looked Elena up and down, taking in her simple dress and worn shoes. She clearly wasn't a wealthy customer. "Ma'am, please return to your table," Derek said in a cold voice. "This doesn't concern you." Elena felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment, but she didn't back down. She had faced worse than this rude young man. "Actually, it does concern me," she said, standing straighter. "My son and I are trying to enjoy our dinner, and your confrontational behavior is disturbing other guests." Michael looked at Elena with new interest. He could see she was nervous, but she wasn't giving up. It reminded him of something Pops used to say. Real courage isn't about not being scared. It's about being scared and doing the right thing anyway. "Lady, I don't know who you think you are," Derek snapped, "but I'm the manager here. I make the decisions." "Then maybe you should make better ones," Elena shot back. Other diners were definitely watching now. An elderly couple whispered to each other and shook their heads at Derek's behavior. A businessman at the bar put down his drink and turned to see what was happening. Derek realized he was losing control of the situation. More people were taking out their phones. This was not going the way he had planned. "You need to mind your own business," Derek said to Elena, his voice getting louder. "When I see someone being treated unfairly, it becomes my business," Elena replied. Michael felt something stir in his chest. This woman didn't even know him, but she was willing to stand up for him. She was risking her own peaceful evening to help a stranger. "Ma'am, you don't have to do this," Michael said softly to Elena. Elena looked at him and saw the same sadness she had noticed from across the room. Whatever this hat meant to him, it was important. She could see it in his eyes. "You don't have to take off your hat," she said gently. "Some things are more important than arbitrary rules." Those words hit Michael like a lightning bolt. That was exactly what Pops would have said. Pops always cared more about people than policies. Derek was getting desperate now. He could see that other customers were taking Elena's side. This was supposed to be simple. Just enforce the dress code and move on. Now it had become a public argument. "That's it," Derek said loudly. "I'm calling security. Both of you can leave." He pulled out his phone and started dialing. Elena felt panic rise in her throat. What if they really got kicked out? What would Marcus think? His birthday dinner would be ruined because his mother couldn't stay out of other people's business. But then she looked back at her son. Marcus was watching everything with wide eyes. He wasn't upset or scared. He looked proud of his mother. Marcus had spent 2 years fighting a disease that tried to defeat him every day. He never gave up, even when the treatments made him sick. Even when other kids stared at his bald head. Even when he was too weak to play. If her 8-year-old son could be that brave, Elena could be brave too. "Call security if you want," Elena said, her voice steady now. "But everyone here can see who's really causing the problem." Michael looked at this brave woman standing up for him, and he made a decision. He slowly started to reach for his hat. "Wait," Elena said, placing her hand gently on his arm. "You don't have to do that." Their eyes met across the table. In that moment, 2 strangers became allies. Elena didn't know about Pops or the promise Michael had made. She just knew that sometimes you have to fight for what's right, even when it's hard. "Thank you," Michael said quietly. "Don't thank me yet," Elena replied with a small smile. "This isn't over." Derek finished his phone call and looked at them with satisfaction. "Security will be here in 2 minutes. I hope you're both happy." Elena looked back toward her table where Marcus was watching. Her son gave her a thumbs up and smiled. Even if they got kicked out, even if the birthday dinner was ruined, Marcus was proud of her for doing the right thing. Sometimes that was all that mattered. "I'm very happy," Elena said to Derek. "My son is learning what it means to stand up for others. That's worth more than any dinner." Michael felt his heart swell with admiration for this woman. She was risking everything for a stranger, teaching her child about courage and kindness. As they waited for security to arrive, Michael realized something important. Pop's hat had already done its job. It had brought out the best in someone else. It had inspired Elena to be brave. Maybe that's what Pops had meant all those years ago. The real magic wasn't in the hat itself. It was in the way it made people remember what truly mattered. The restaurant doors opened, and 2 security guards walked in. The 2 security guards were big men wearing black uniforms. They walked slowly toward the corner booth, their heavy boots making loud sounds on the marble floor. Derek pointed at Michael and Elena. "These 2 customers are refusing to follow our dress code policy. I need them escorted out." The whole restaurant was silent now. Everyone stopped eating. Forks hung in the air. Even the soft jazz music seemed quieter. Elena felt her stomach drop. This was really happening. She looked back at Marcus, who was watching with worried eyes. His special birthday dinner was about to end with his mother getting kicked out of a restaurant. But Marcus didn't look angry or embarrassed. He looked determined. He gave his mother another thumbs up, telling her without words that he was proud of her choice. Michael saw the security guards approaching and felt something change inside him. He thought about Pops sitting alone in that empty gym, sharing his final gift with quiet dignity. Pops never ran from difficult moments. He faced them with grace and truth. "Wait," Michael said, standing up from the booth. Everyone stopped. The security guards paused in the middle of the dining room. Derek looked confused. Elena watched with surprise. "Before anyone leaves," Michael said in a clear, strong voice, "I'd like to ask for everyone's attention." He looked around the restaurant, at all the faces staring at him. Some people recognized him now. Others just saw a man in an old baseball cap, standing up for himself. "If you'll give me just a moment," Michael continued, "I'd like to explain why this hat means so much to me." Derek started to protest. "Sir, this isn't necessary. Just remove the hat, and we can all move on." "No," Michael said firmly. "I think it is necessary. This lady was brave enough to stand up for a stranger. The least I can do is tell the truth." Elena felt tears forming in her eyes. This man was about to share something personal and painful, all because she had found the courage to help him. Michael took a deep breath and began. 3 weeks ago, I lost someone very important to me. His name was Clarence Washington, but everyone called him Pops. The restaurant was so quiet you could hear the ice clinking in water glasses. Pops worked as a janitor at the Bulls practice facility for 15 years. Every morning at 6, he unlocked the doors. Every night at 10, he locked them again. Michael's voice grew stronger as he spoke about his friend. But Pops was much more than a janitor. He was the heart of our building. Young players who missed their families would find him in his small office. He always had time to listen. He never judged anyone. He just cared. Elena watched Michael's face as he spoke. She could see the love and pain in his eyes. This wasn't just a story about a janitor. This was about family. Pops wore this same Bulls cap every single day for 15 years. Michael continued, touching the brim gently. It was old and faded, but he said it had magic in it. He said it had seen more basketball than most people see in a lifetime. Hey, few people in the restaurant were crying now. The elderly couple at table 6 held hands. The businessman at the bar put down his phone and really listened. When Pops got sick with cancer, he called me to the gym one last time. He took off this hat and gave it to me. He said, "This hat has been my companion through every championship celebration and every heartbreaking loss. Now I want it to be with someone who understands what really matters." Michael's voice began to shake, but he kept going. "He made me promise to wear this hat when life got hard. When people tried to make me forget who I really was. He said it would remind me of what's truly important." Derek stood frozen in place. His anger had completely disappeared. He was beginning to understand the terrible mistake he had made. "Pops died 2 weeks later," Michael said, his voice barely above a whisper. "This hat is the only thing I have left of a man who taught me about quiet strength, humble service, and unconditional love." The restaurant was completely silent except for the sound of people quietly crying. So when this young manager asked me to remove my hat, he wasn't just asking me to follow a dress code. He was asking me to break a promise to a dying man. He was asking me to forget the most important lesson I've ever learned. Michael looked directly at Derek, but his voice held no anger. "I couldn't do that. Not for a rule. Not for anyone." Elena wiped tears from her cheeks. She understood now why Michael couldn't take off the hat. It wasn't about being stubborn or difficult. It was about love and memory and keeping promises to people who mattered. Derek's face was pale. His hands trembled slightly. He looked around the restaurant at all the people staring at him with disappointment and sadness. I didn't know, Derek stammered. How could you know? Michael replied gently. But maybe that's the lesson here. Maybe we should ask questions before we make demands. Maybe we should try to understand before we judge. The security guards looked at Derek, waiting for instructions. But Derek couldn't speak. He was thinking about all the times he had enforced rules without caring about the people behind them. Michael sat back down and looked at Elena. Thank you for standing up for me. Pops would have liked you. He always said the bravest people are the ones who help others even when it costs them something. Elena smiled through her tears. Your friend sounds like he was a wonderful man. He was, Michael said, and his memory deserves more respect than what happened here tonight. The whole restaurant agreed. For a long moment, nobody moved. The security guards stood awkwardly in the middle of the restaurant, unsure what to do. Derek's face was red with shame. The other diners wiped tears from their eyes. Then, slowly, someone started clapping. It was the elderly man at table 6. His wife joined him, then the businessman at the bar. Soon the whole restaurant was applauding, not for a celebrity, but for a man who had shared his heart with strangers. Michael felt overwhelmed by the kindness. This wasn't what he had expected when he walked into Romano's tonight. He had wanted to be alone with his grief. Instead, he had found a room full of people who understood love and loss. Derek took a shaky breath and walked toward Michael's table. His confident swagger was gone. He looked like a young man who had learned a hard lesson. Sir, Derek said quietly, I owe you a sincere apology. Michael looked up at him. Derek's blue eyes were filled with regret and something else, understanding. I was wrong. Derek continued. I was so focused on following rules that I forgot about treating people with respect. Your friend Pops sounds like an amazing man, and you were right to honor his memory. Michael studied Derek's face. He could see the young man was genuinely sorry. Pops had always taught him that everyone deserves a second chance to do better. You were doing your job, Michael said kindly. But sometimes the most important rules aren't written in policy manuals. Sometimes we have to listen with our hearts. Derek nodded, tears forming in his eyes. I understand that now. Is there anything I can do to make this right? You can learn from it, Michael replied. That's what Pops would have wanted. The security guards quietly left the restaurant. There was no need for them anymore. What had started as a confrontation had become a lesson in humanity. Elena watched this exchange with admiration. Michael could have been angry or demanded Derek be fired. Instead, he chose forgiveness and teaching. That took real strength. Mom, a small voice called from across the restaurant. Elena turned to see Marcus walking toward their table. He moved slowly, his thin legs still weak from treatments, but his eyes were bright with excitement. Marcus, honey, come here, Elena said, reaching out her hand. But Marcus wasn't looking at his mother. He was staring at Michael Jordan with pure wonder. Michael noticed the boy approaching and smiled. Marcus was wearing a Bulls jersey and a Bulls cap, just like the one Michael wore. But there was something different about this child. He looked fragile but determined, like someone who had been through difficult times. Are you really Michael Jordan? Marcus asked in a whisper. I am, Michael said gently. What's your name? Marcus Rodriguez. Today's my birthday. I'm 8 years old. Marcus's voice was soft but proud. Happy birthday, Marcus. That's a pretty cool jersey you're wearing. Marcus beamed with joy. You're my hero. My mom saved money for months so we could eat dinner here tonight. She works really hard. Michael looked at Elena with new respect. He understood now why she had been willing to risk her son's special dinner to help a stranger. She was teaching Marcus about courage and standing up for others. Your mom is very brave, Michael told Marcus. She stood up for me when I needed help. That's not easy to do. Marcus nodded seriously. She's always brave. When I was really sick in the hospital, she fought with the doctors to make sure I got the best care. She never gave up on me. Elena felt her cheeks burn. She didn't like talking about Marcus's illness with strangers. But Michael's kind eyes made her feel safe. You were sick? Michael asked Marcus gently. I have leukemia. It's a kind of cancer. But I'm getting better now. Marcus said it matter-of-factly, like he was talking about the weather. Michael felt his heart clench. This brave little boy was fighting the same disease that had taken Pops. But unlike Pops, Marcus still had a chance to win his battle. That must be really scary sometimes, Michael said. Sometimes, Marcus admitted. But my mom says I'm stronger than I know. And I watch your old games when I feel afraid. You never gave up, even when your team was losing. Michael was quiet for a moment. This 8-year-old boy had faced more challenges than most adults ever would. Yet here he was, still fighting, still believing, still finding heroes to inspire him. Can I tell you a secret? Michael asked Marcus. Marcus nodded eagerly. I was scared a lot too. Before big games, during tough times, when people expected me to be perfect. But I had someone who taught me that being scared doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. Was that Pops? Marcus asked. Michael smiled. This boy had been listening carefully to the story. Yes, that was Pops. He taught me that real strength comes from caring about others, even when you're hurting yourself. Marcus looked at Michael's hat with new understanding. Is that why you couldn't take it off? Because it reminds you of him. Exactly. This hat helps me remember his lessons when I need them most. Elena watched her son talking with his hero and felt overwhelmed with gratitude. This wasn't just a celebrity being nice to a sick kid. This was one person sharing real wisdom with another. Marcus has been so brave through everything, Elena said to Michael. The treatments, the surgeries, all the times he felt sick. He never complains. That's because he has a great teacher, Michael said, looking at Elena. Courage is something we learn from the people who love us. Derek had been watching this conversation from a distance. Seeing Michael interact with the sick child made his earlier behavior seem even worse. This man wasn't just a famous athlete. He was someone who truly cared about people. Marcus suddenly looked thoughtful. Mr. Jordan, do you think Pops would have liked me? Michael's eyes filled with tears. Marcus, I know Pops would have loved you. He had a special place in his heart for brave kids who never give up. I wish I could have met him. In a way, you have, Michael said, touching his hat gently. His spirit lives on in everyone who chooses kindness over rules, love over fear. You and your mom showed that spirit tonight. Marcus smiled the biggest smile Elena had seen from him in weeks. Marcus smiled the biggest smile Elena had seen from him in weeks. The joy on her son's face made all the worry and conflict worth it. This was why she had worked double shifts and saved every penny. This moment of pure happiness, Derek watched from across the restaurant, still feeling terrible about what had happened. He kept thinking about Michael's story and the lesson about rules versus kindness. His mind was racing with an idea that seemed crazy but felt right. Derek walked quickly to the back office where his manager, Mrs. Chun, was doing paperwork. She was a stern woman who cared deeply about the restaurant's reputation. Mrs. Chun, I need to talk to you about something important, Derek said, knocking on the open door. She looked up from her computer. What's all the commotion out there? I heard raised voices. Derek took a deep breath. I made a big mistake tonight. I embarrassed a customer and nearly ruined a child's birthday celebration because I was too focused on following rules. Mrs. Chun frowned. What kind of mistake? The customer was wearing a hat, and I demanded he remove it. But the hat belonged to his friend who died of cancer. It was the only thing he had left to remember him by. Derek explained the whole story, Michael's promise to Pops, Elena's courage in standing up for a stranger, Marcus's battle with leukemia, and how the entire restaurant had been moved by Michael's honesty. I want to make this right, Derek concluded. I want to waive the bill for both families. They shouldn't have to pay for a meal that was ruined by my poor judgment. Mrs. Chun was quiet for a long moment. She had been running restaurants for 20 years, and she had seen many managers make mistakes. But she had never seen one willing to take responsibility like this. Derek, waiving bills costs money. The owner won't like it. Then take it out of my paycheck, Derek said without hesitation. Some things are more important than profit. Mrs. Chun studied the young man's face. 3 weeks ago, Derek had been all about following rules and impressing his superiors. Tonight, he was willing to sacrifice his own money to do what was right. Tell me more about this child with cancer, she said. His name is Marcus. He's 8 years old, and today is his birthday. His mother worked 2 jobs for months to save money for this dinner. She wanted to give her son one perfect night away from hospitals and treatments. Mrs. Chun's expression softened. She had grandchildren Marcus's age. The thought of a child fighting cancer while trying to enjoy his birthday touched her heart. And the mother stood up for a stranger, she asked. She risked her son's special dinner to help someone she didn't even know. That takes real courage. Mrs. Chun made her decision. Wave both bills. And Derek, yes, ma'am. You're learning what it really means to be a manager. I'm proud of you. Derek felt relief flood through his body. Thank you, Mrs. Chun. I won't let you down. He hurried back to the dining room, where Michael was still talking with Marcus and Elena. The three of them looked like old friends sharing stories. Mr. Jordan, Marcus was saying, when I grow up, I want to help kids who are sick like me. Maybe I could be a doctor or a nurse. That's a wonderful dream, Michael replied. The world needs more people like you. People who understand what it's like to be scared and still choose to help others. Elena listened to this conversation with tears in her eyes. For months, she had worried that Marcus's illness would make him bitter or afraid. Instead, it was making him more compassionate. Marcus has always been like that, Elena said. Even when he was sickest, he would try to cheer up other kids in the hospital. He would share his toys and tell jokes to make them laugh. Michael looked at Marcus with admiration. You know what Pops used to say? He said the strongest people aren't the ones who never fall down. They're the ones who help others get back up. I like that, Marcus said thoughtfully. Pop sounds like he was really smart. He was. And I think he would have been amazed by you. Derek approached their table, his heart pounding with nervousness. He had never done anything like this before. Excuse me, he said quietly. I have something I'd like to tell you. All three of them looked up at him. Derek's face was no longer angry or impatient. He looked humble and sincere. I spoke with my manager about tonight's events, Derek began. We both agree that what happened here was unacceptable. Not the dress code issue, but my failure to listen and understand. He paused, gathering his courage. We would like to comp both of your meals tonight. And Marcus, we'd like to bring you a special birthday dessert to make up for how your celebration was interrupted. Elena's mouth fell open in surprise. That's not necessary. We can pay our bill. Please, Derek said. This isn't about the money. It's about doing what's right. You stood up for a stranger when it would have been easier to stay silent. That's the kind of customer service we should be providing, not the kind I showed tonight. Michael was impressed by Derek's gesture. The young man was learning from his mistake and trying to make amends. That took character. That's very kind of you, Michael said to Derek. But I'd like to pay for Marcus's birthday dinner myself. It's been an honor to meet such a brave young man. No way, Derek said quickly. This one's on Romanos. We want to show Marcus and his mother how much we respect their courage. Elena felt overwhelmed by the kindness. First Michael's gentle words to her son, now Derek's generous gesture. This night had gone from confrontation to connection in the most unexpected way. Thank you, she said to Derek. That means more than you know. Marcus looked confused. Why is everyone being so nice to us? Michael smiled and ruffled the boy's hair gently. Because sometimes, Marcus, when people make mistakes, they learn to be better. And when good people meet other good people, magical things happen. Is that another one of Pop's lessons? Marcus asked. No, Michael said with a grin. That one I learned tonight, from you and your mom. Derek went to arrange for the birthday dessert, feeling lighter than he had all evening. He was beginning to understand that true success wasn't about following every rule perfectly. It was about caring for people and making their lives a little bit brighter. As he walked toward the kitchen, Derek realized this night had changed him forever. As he walked toward the kitchen, Derek realized this night had changed him forever. He would never again see rules as more important than people. He would never again forget to listen with his heart. Back at the corner booth, Michael continued talking with Marcus and Elena. The boy's excitement was contagious. His eyes sparkled as he asked question after question about basketball, about overcoming challenges, about never giving up. Mr. Jordan, what was your scariest moment? Marcus asked. Michael thought for a moment. Probably the first time I got cut from my high school basketball team. I felt like my whole world was ending. What did you do? I cried. Then I got angry. Then I decided to work harder than anyone else. But the most important thing was having people who believed in me, even when I didn't believe in myself. Marcus nodded seriously. Like how my mom believes in me when the treatments make me feel too weak to get out of bed. Elena squeezed her son's hand. She remembered those dark days when Marcus was so sick he could barely lift his head. But even then, he would smile at her and say, I'm okay, Mom. Tomorrow will be better. Exactly like that, Michael said. You're Mom's love gives you strength you didn't know you had, just like Pop's hat gives you strength. Marcus asked. Michael looked down at the Warren Bulls cap on his head. In the past hour, this hat had sparked a confrontation, revealed a beautiful story, and brought together a group of strangers who were now becoming friends. You know what, Marcus? Michael said suddenly. I think Pops would want this hat to be with someone who really understands what it means. Before anyone could react, Michael slowly took off the precious cap. Elena gasped. Derek, who was returning with news about the birthday dessert, stopped in his tracks. Mr. Jordan, what are you doing? Marcus whispered. Michael held the hat gently in his hands, looking at it one last time. The fabric was soft and faded. The logo was cracked, but it still held all the love and wisdom that Pops had poured into it over 15 years. Pops always said this hat had magic in it, Michael told Marcus. But tonight I realized something. The real magic isn't in the hat itself. It's in the person wearing it. He placed the cap carefully on Marcus's small head. It was too big, but somehow it looked perfect. Pops gave this to me when I needed strength and guidance. Now I'm passing that strength to someone else who needs it. Someone who has shown more courage in 8 years than most people show in a lifetime. Marcus's eyes filled with tears. He reached up to touch the brim of the hat, the same way he had seen Michael do. But Mr. Jordan, this was your promise to Pops. You said you would wear it when things got hard. Michael smiled, and for the first time all evening, it was a smile without sadness. Marcus, I think Pops would be happier knowing his hat was helping a brave boy fight cancer than sitting on my head feeling sorry for myself. You need this hat more than I do. Elena couldn't speak. She watched her son wearing Michael Jordan's most precious possession, and she saw something magical happen. Marcus sat up straighter, his thin shoulders squared with new confidence. The hat seemed to give him a strength that came from somewhere deep inside. Are you sure? Marcus asked, quietly. I've never been more sure of anything, Michael replied. But I want you to make me a promise. What kind of promise? Promise me that when you're scared or feeling weak, you'll remember that this hat has been worn by 2 people who never gave up. Pops fought through 15 years of early mornings and late nights because he loved taking care of others. You're fighting through treatments and surgeries because you love living and dreaming about your future. Marcus nodded solemnly. I promise. And promise me something else. When you're older and stronger, and you meet another kid who needs hope, you'll share Pop's story. You'll help them understand that being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means being scared and helping others anyway. I promise that too, Marcus said, his voice strong and clear. Derek watched this exchange with wonder. He had witnessed something extraordinary tonight. A man giving away his most treasured possession to a child he had just met. A mother standing up for a stranger. A sick boy teaching everyone around him about courage. Mrs. Chen appeared beside Derek, carrying a small birthday cake with 8 candles. She had heard the conversation and seen Michael place the hat on Marcus's head. Is that little boy really fighting cancer? She whispered to Derek. Yes, and he's winning. Mrs. Chen looked at Marcus wearing the oversized bull's cap, his face glowing with joy and determination. She thought about her own grandchildren, safe and healthy at home. Bring that cake to him, she said, and tell the kitchen to prepare anything else he wants. This meal is on the house, and so is anything else that boy desires. Derek nodded and approached the table with the birthday cake. The candles flickered like tiny stars. Happy birthday, Marcus, Derek said, setting the cake in front of the boy. Make a wish. Marcus closed his eyes tightly, wearing Pop's hat like a crown. Elena wondered what her son was wishing for. Health, happiness, a normal childhood without hospitals and treatments. Marcus opened his eyes and blew out all 8 candles in one breath. The restaurant erupted in applause. Other diners who had been quietly watching all evening clapped and cheered for the brave birthday boy. What did you wish for? Elena asked. Marcus looked up at his mother, then at Michael, then at Derek. The hat was still too big for his head, but his smile was bigger than the hat. I wish that someday I could help other kids the way Pops helped people. I wished I could be brave like him and kind like Mr. Jordan and strong like you, Mom. Elena burst into tears. Michael felt his heart swell with pride and grief and hope all mixed together. Derek realized he was witnessing the most beautiful moment of his life. Michael reached across the table and shook Marcus's hand like he was greeting another adult. Marcus Rodriguez, he said formally. You are now the official keeper of Pop's hat and everything it represents. Wear it with honor. I will, Mr. Jordan. I promise. As Marcus cut his birthday cake, wearing a Bulls cap that had seen 15 years of love and was now beginning a new chapter, everyone in Romano's restaurant understood they had witnessed something special. They had seen how kindness spreads from person to person, how courage inspires courage, and how love never really dies. It just finds new ways to grow. As Marcus finished his birthday cake, wearing Pop's hat with pride, the evening began to wind down. But nobody wanted this magical night to end. Michael looked at his watch. It was almost 9 o'clock. He had come to Romano's wanting to eat alone and remember Pops quietly. Instead, he had found something better. He had found a new purpose. Marcus, Michael said, I want to make you a promise. The boy looked up from his cake, chocolate frosting on his chin. What kind of promise? I promise to stay in touch with you and your mom. I want to know how your treatments are going. I want to hear about your dreams and your plans for the future. Elena felt her heart skip a beat. Mr. Jordan, that's very kind, but you don't have to. Yes, I do, Michael interrupted gently. Tonight you both reminded me what Pops was trying to teach me. He didn't give me this hat just to remember him. He gave it to me so I could help others the way he helped me. Michael pulled out his phone and handed it to Elena. Please put in your number. I want to visit Marcus in the hospital during his next treatment, if that's okay with you. Elena's hands shook as she typed in her contact information. Her sons, Hero wanted to be part of their lives. It felt like a dream. Can you really come to the hospital? Marcus asked, his eyes wide with excitement. Of course, and maybe I can bring some friends. Some of the other Bulls players would love to meet a brave kid like you. Marcus nearly fell off his chair with excitement. Really? Other players too. Really. But more than that, I want to learn from you, Marcus. You're teaching me how to be strong in a different way than basketball ever did. Derek had been listening to this conversation while cleaning nearby tables. He made his own decision. Mr. Jordan, if it's okay, I'd like to make a promise too. Everyone turned to look at the young manager. Derek's face was serious but determined. Marcus, I promise to be a better person because of what I learned tonight. I promise to listen more and judge less. And I promise that whenever you and your family want to come back to Romano's, your meals will always be free. Mrs. Chun appeared beside Derek. She had been listening from the kitchen doorway. Make that a promise from all of us at Romano's, she said warmly. Marcus, you and your mother are family here now. Elena couldn't stop crying. 6 hours ago, she had been worried about affording one special dinner for her son. Now Marcus had a restaurant family, a famous mentor, and a magical hat that made him feel invincible. But Elena had her own promise to make. I have something to say too, she announced, wiping her tears. She looked around the table at Michael, Derek, and Mrs. Chun. Then she looked at her son, sitting tall in Pop's oversized hat. Tonight, I learned something important. For 2 years, I've been so focused on fighting Marcus's cancer that I forgot about fighting for other families going through the same thing. She took a deep breath. I'm going to start a support group for parents of children with serious illnesses. I want to create the kind of community that we found here tonight. A place where people help each other instead of facing their fears alone. Michael smiled. That's exactly what Pops would have wanted. He always said the best way to heal your own pain is to help someone else heal theirs. What would you call this support group? Derek asked. Elena looked at Marcus, who was touching the brim of his new hat thoughtfully. Pop's Place, Marcus said suddenly. We should call it Pop's Place, because it's where people come to find hope. Pop's Place, Elena repeated. I love that. Michael felt tears forming in his eyes. Pop's legacy was already growing beyond anything he could have imagined. The hat wasn't just going to help Marcus. It was going to help dozens of families. You know what? Mrs. Chun said suddenly. If you need a place to hold your support group meetings, you can use Romano's back dining room. No charge. Derek nodded enthusiastically. We could provide snacks and drinks for the families too. Elena was overwhelmed by the generosity. Why would you do that for us? Because tonight we learned that helping others isn't just good for them, Derek explained. It's good for us too. It makes us better people. Marcus had been quiet during this conversation, but now he spoke up. I want to make a promise too, he said in his small but strong voice. Everyone leaned in to listen. I promise to wear this hat every time I go for treatments. I promised to tell other kids about Pops and how he never gave up on helping people. And I promised that when I grow up and become a doctor, I'll help kids who are scared just like I was. Michael reached over and adjusted the hat on Marcus's head so it sat more securely. Marcus, I think you're going to be an amazing doctor. But you're already helping kids right now, just by showing them what courage looks like. How am I helping them? By proving that being sick doesn't make you weak. By showing that you can face scary things and still have hope. By wearing that hat like the champion you are. Marcus sat up even straighter. The hat seemed to fit him better now, like it was adjusting to its new owner. As the evening came to an end, the four of them exchanged phone numbers and made plans to meet again soon. Derek promised to research the best meeting spaces for Elena's support group. Mrs. Chun promised to talk to other restaurant owners about supporting families in need. Michael promised to visit Marcus at his next doctor's appointment. And Marcus promised to wear Pop's hat with honor and share its story with anyone who needed hope. Before we leave, Elena said, I want to thank everyone. When we walked in here tonight, I thought we were just having a birthday dinner. I had no idea we were about to become part of something bigger. That's the funny thing about kindness. Michael said, you never know where it's going to lead. You just have to be brave enough to start. As they gathered their things to leave, Marcus kept touching his new hat to make sure it was real. This morning he had been just a sick kid hoping for a nice birthday. Tonight he was the keeper of a legacy, the inspiration for a support group, and the friend of his biggest hero. The hat had already begun to work its magic. Not because it had special powers, but because it reminded everyone who saw it that love never dies. It just finds new people to love through. Outside Romano's, under the streetlights, Marcus hugged Michael goodbye. The hat was still too big, but the boy wearing it seemed to have grown taller. Thank you for the best birthday ever, Marcus whispered. Thank you for reminding me what birthdays are really about, Michael whispered back. New beginnings. 3 months later, Marcus walked into Romano's restaurant wearing Pop's hat and a huge smile. His latest doctor's visit had brought the best news possible. His cancer was in complete remission. Elena followed behind him, carrying a folder full of pictures and papers. Pop's Place support group now had 43 families and met every Tuesday in Romano's back dining room. They had helped dozens of children and parents find hope during their darkest moments. Derek greeted them at the door with a warm hug. He had been promoted to general manager after changing the restaurant's entire approach to customer service. His new training program focused on listening with hearts, not just following rules. Marcus, how are you feeling? Derek asked. Amazing, Marcus replied, adjusting his hat proudly. The doctors say I'm stronger than ever. And guess what? I told 5 new kids at the hospital about Pops and his hat this week. That's incredible. Mr. Jordan is already here waiting for you. He's been so excited about your good news. Michael was sitting in the same corner booth where everything had started 3 months ago. But this time, he wasn't alone and sad. He was reading cards from children Marcus had met at the hospital, kids who had heard Pop's story and found courage in it. There's my champion, Michael said, standing up to hug Marcus. The hat still looked too big on Marcus's head, but everything else about him seemed bigger. His smile was brighter. His voice was stronger. His confidence filled the room. Mr. Jordan, I have so much to tell you, Marcus said excitedly. The doctors said my treatments worked perfectly, and my mom's support group is helping so many families. And I started a junior helper program at the children's hospital where I teach other kids about being brave. Elena watched her son bubbling with energy and felt overwhelmed with gratitude. 3 months ago, she had feared losing him to cancer. Now she watched him helping other children find hope. And I have something special for you, Marcus continued, reaching up to touch his hat. Michael looked confused. For me, I want to give Pop's hat back to you. Not forever, but just for today. I have something I need to tell you, and I think you should be wearing it when you hear it. Marcus carefully removed the worn bull's cap and held it out to Michael. Please. Michael took the hat with trembling hands. He hadn't worn it in 3 months, but it still felt like coming home. He placed it gently on his head. Thank you, Marcus. What did you want to tell me? Marcus sat down across from Michael, his eyes serious despite his happy mood. Mr. Jordan, last week my mom and I were cleaning out old boxes in our apartment. We found some papers that belonged to my dad before he died when I was a baby. Elena nodded. She had never told Marcus much about his father, who had died in a car accident when Marcus was only 6 months old. One of the papers was from the hospital where I was born, Marcus continued. It had information about blood donors who gave blood to help premature babies. Michael listened carefully, not understanding where this was going. The paper said that a man named Clarence Washington donated blood that helped save my life when I was born. They called him a hero donor because he gave blood every month for 15 years. Michael's heart stopped beating. Clarence Washington. Pops. Marcus, Michael said quietly. Are you sure that's what the paper said? Yes. My mom has it right here. Marcus looked at Elena, who pulled out an old hospital document. Elena handed the paper to Michael with shaking hands. We had no idea who Clarence Washington was until Marcus told me about Pop's real name. When we realized it was the same person, we knew we had to tell you. Michael stared at the document. There it was, in black and white. Clarence Washington, hero donor. Blood donation helped save infant Marcus Rodriguez, June 15th. Marcus's birthday. The night when everything changed at Romano's had been exactly 8 years after Pop's blood had saved Marcus's life as a baby. Pops saved my life before I even knew he existed, Marcus whispered. And then his hat saved my life again by bringing us all together. Michael felt tears streaming down his face. This was why the hat had been so important that night. This was why he couldn't take it off. Some part of him had known that giving it to Marcus was continuing a circle that Pops had started years before, but there was something else. Something Michael had never told anyone, not even Pops himself. Marcus, Michael said, his voice shaking. I have something to tell you too. Something I've never told anyone. Elena and Derek moved closer, sensing that something important was about to happen. Pops, Clarence Washington, wasn't just my mentor and friend. Michael took a deep breath. He was my biological father. The restaurant fell completely silent. When I was born, my birth mother was very young and couldn't take care of me. She gave me up for adoption to a wonderful family who raised me and loved me. But my birth father was a man named Clarence Washington. Michael's voice broke as he continued. Pops knew who I was from the day I started playing for the Bulls, but he never told me. He never tried to claim me as his son or take credit for my success. He just watched over me quietly, helping me become a better man. Elena gasped. He was your father? He made me promise never to tell anyone while he was alive. He said he didn't want to complicate my life or make people think my success was because of family connections. He was content just being near me, helping in whatever way he could. Marcus stared at Michael with wide eyes. So when you gave me his hat, you were giving me something from your father? Yes. And now I understand why it felt so right. Pops had already connected us years before. We met. His blood saved your life as a baby. His hat brought us together. His love created a family that goes beyond biology. Michael looked at Marcus wearing no hat, but somehow looking more confident than ever. Marcus, you carry Pop's legacy better than I ever could. You've shown more courage in 8 years than most people show in a lifetime. You've helped more children find hope than I helped people win basketball games. But the hat belongs to you, Marcus protested. He was your father. Michael smiled and slowly removed the hat once more. No, Marcus, this hat belongs wherever. It can do the most good. Pops would want it with someone who understands that love isn't about keeping things for yourself. It's about giving them to people who need them most. He placed the hat back on Marcus's head. Besides, Michael added with a grin, I think Pops is laughing somewhere, knowing his hat brought together 2 kids he helped save, one with basketball advice, one with his own blood. Elena wiped tears from her eyes. So Pops saved Marcus's life twice, once as a baby, once through his hat bringing us to you. 3 times, Marcus corrected. He saved my life as a baby with his blood. He saved my life at 8 years old by giving me hope through this hat. And he's still saving my life every day by reminding me that I can help other kids too. Derek had been listening in amazement. This is incredible. It's like everything was connected from the beginning. That's what love does, Michael said. It connects people across time and space and circumstances. Pops never got to be my father in the traditional way, but he found a way to love me anyway. And now he's found a way to love you too, Marcus, through the legacy he left behind. Marcus stood up and hugged Michael tightly, both of them wearing Bulls jerseys, both of them carrying Pop's love in different ways. I promise to take care of this hat forever, Marcus said. And I promised to tell everyone about Pops, about how he saved lives with his blood, with his kindness, and with his wisdom. I know you will, Michael replied. You're already making him proud. As they sat in Romano's restaurant, now officially renamed Pop's Place, in honor of the man who had connected them all, Marcus looked around at his chosen family. Elena, who had taught him courage. Derek, who had learned to lead with his heart. Mrs. Chun, who had opened her restaurant to their support group. And Michael, who had shown him that heroes aren't perfect people. They're people who help others become their best selves. The Warren Bulls hat sat on Marcus's head like a crown, carrying the love of a man who had given blood to save strangers, wisdom to guide champions, and hope to children who needed it most. Pop's legacy lived on, not in memory, but in action, not in the past, but in the future, not in one person, but in everyone whose life he had touched, and somewhere, in whatever place good souls go when their work on earth is done. Clarence Pops Washington smiled, knowing that love truly never dies. That IT just finds new ways to grow. And that's how one old baseball cap taught us that love never really dies. It just finds new ways to grow. Pop's kindness created a ripple effect that touched strangers, brought families together, and reminded everyone that sometimes the smallest acts of courage can change everything. Just like Elena stood up for a stranger that night, you can spread kindness in your own community. One simple act of compassion can create miracles you never imagined. Where are you listening from right now? Drop a comment and let us know your city or country. We love hearing from our amazing listeners around the world. If this story touched your heart and reminded you about the power of kindness, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. When you subscribe, you're not just supporting us, you're helping us spread these important stories about courage, compassion, and hope to people who need to hear them. And speaking of spreading kindness, click on the video appearing on your screen right now for another incredible true story that will inspire you to make a difference in someone's life today. Remember, we all have the power to be someone's hero. Sometimes it's as simple as standing up for a stranger, keeping a promise, or sharing a story that gives someone hope. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next story.